Iran, not just the Houthis, now appears poised to step directly into a vital global oil trade route, raising fresh fears of who really controls the flow of energy. Tehran is dropping hints about a new maritime choke point, with Bab El-Mandeb emerging as the possible next flashpoint for global oil shipments. A cryptic warning from Iranian Speaker Ghalibaf has set off alarm bells across Arab capitals, fueling anxiety over Iran's next move at sea. If Bab El-Mandeb is blocked next, Iran's grip from this strait to the Strait of Hormuz could give it leverage over world energy flows for years to come. By tightening its hold on key oil routes, Iran could slowly choke the US and its allies economically, even as the war grinds on with no clear end in sight. After tightening its grip on the Strait of Hormuz, Iran is now signaling that even the Bab el-Mandeb Strait could be next in its sights, raising the specter of another critical oil artery coming under threat. Iran's parliament speaker has hinted that Tehran may widen its blockade threat all the way to Bab el-Mandeb, suggesting that any escalation could extend the conflict into yet another strategic waterway. A military source told Tasnim News that if Iran is attacked, it could respond by opening a new front, implying that the battlefield might rapidly shift from land and air to the world's busiest sea lanes. Yemen's Iran-backed Houthi forces have already targeted ships near the Bab el-Mandeb corridor, and their past attacks now serve as a warning sign of what a wider, coordinated campaign in these waters could look like. Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammad-Bagher Ghalibaf, said, and I quote, "What share of global oil, LNG, wheat, rice, and fertilizer shipments transits the Bab el-Mandeb Strait? Which countries and companies account for the highest transit volumes through the strait?" Meanwhile, a senior security official warned that Iran has the capability and resources to maintain its chokehold over the Strait of Hormuz for years, turning this crisis into a long-term strategic standoff rather than a short-lived flashpoint. The official told Press TV that Tehran's primary objective was to cut off sea-borne logistics for US bases, aiming to starve their supply chains and make every shipment of fuel, weapons, and equipment far more difficult and dangerous. He added that most of the heavy equipment and vital supplies for US bases in the region have historically moved by sea, meaning that any prolonged disruption in these waters would immediately weaken their operational reach and response time. Iranian forces have effectively closed the Strait of Hormuz to US and allied vessels, creating a tense maritime standoff where warships, tankers, and cargo carriers now face unprecedented restrictions and the constant threat of confrontation. This closure has rattled global supply chains, sending shockwaves through energy markets and driving oil prices sharply higher across the globe, as traders and governments scramble to secure alternative routes and emergency reserves. Beyond crude oil, the shutdown of Hormuz has also disrupted flows of LNG, fertilizers, and other critical commodities, squeezing industries from power generation to agriculture and raising fears of knock-on shortages and higher production costs. At the same time, soaring logistics and maritime insurance costs are being passed down the chain, adding to price pressures in the US economy and fueling fresh concerns that this crisis at sea could drive inflation even higher. US intelligence assessments warned that Tehran was unlikely to relax its grip on the Strait of Hormuz anytime soon, suggesting Washington should prepare for a long, grinding standoff at sea rather than a quick breakthrough. A report quoting 3 sources said the Strait of Hormuz remains Iran's only truly powerful leverage over the United States, a pressure point it can use to hit America's economy without firing directly on its homeland. US intelligence officials believe Iran can keep throttling traffic through Hormuz in waves, using each escalation and partial blockade to ratchet up pressure on President Trump and force difficult choices in Washington. The report suggested Tehran could weaponize the strait by keeping it unstable and unpredictable, driving energy prices higher for months and forcing consumers and governments worldwide to pay the cost of this strategic chokehold. Analysts cautioned that a full-scale use of force to break Iran's hold could quickly spiral, potentially triggering a protracted ground war in the region that will be far bloodier and more expensive than a maritime standoff. Military experts warned that any large-scale operation to reopen the Strait of Hormuz would carry enormous risks for US forces, exposing ships, bases, and allies to retaliation and possibly igniting a broader regional conflict. The threat of Iran maintaining tight control over the Strait of Hormuz had pushed many countries to start weighing alternatives. With the waterway carrying roughly a fifth of the world's oil and gas, its security had become a truly global concern. The wider Middle East war had exposed just how fragile that route was, forcing Gulf exporters to seriously look at new pipeline options. Some analysts warned that fresh overland pipelines might be the only real way to cut the Gulf's exposure to sudden supply shocks. Experts added that these routes would be costly and politically complex, but ultimately necessary to keep energy exports flowing. Saudi Arabia already had a powerful backup in place, its East-West pipeline, which moved crude straight to the Red Sea coast. That route allowed Riyadh to keep exports flowing while bypassing the Strait of Hormuz entirely during moments of high tension. One senior Gulf energy executive even described the pipeline as a genius masterstroke for the region's energy security. This existing infrastructure had helped Saudi Arabia maintain oil shipments and reassure markets, even as geopolitical instability roiled the Gulf. Officials were also examining plans to physically link the Arabian Peninsula to the Mediterranean through Israel's northern port city of Haifa. Such a corridor would give Gulf producers a direct export route into Europe without having to depend on the Strait of Hormuz, according to reporting by the Financial Times. Under these ideas, a broader network of pipelines, railway lines, and highways could be built out to offer multiple paths for moving oil, gas, and goods to global markets. At the center of these talks was the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, or IMEC, now being pushed as a game-changing route between Asia and Europe. Backed by Washington, the project aimed to connect India to Europe through key Middle Eastern hubs using ports, rail links, and energy pipelines. Supporters said the corridor could work alongside Gulf bypass plans, adding new arteries for oil, gas, and trade and easing pressure on existing routes. Many officials presented IMEC as a long-term answer to the region's over-reliance on the vulnerable Strait of Hormuz. At the same time, reports said the UK was leading talks among 35 nations to build a coalition that could eventually help reopen the strait. France, Germany, Italy, Canada, and the UAE were among the countries expected to join those discussions set for April 2nd. All of this unfolded as Donald Trump told Americans the hard part of the Iran war was already over, and predicted the Strait of Hormuz would open up naturally once Tehran needs to sell oil again.